Hello, gorgeous people. My name is Donato, and welcome to a new podcast series, which I haven't come up with a jazzy, funky name yet. And maybe my first guest for this will come up with some kind of jazzy name between the two of us. Who knows, or in the future. But at the moment, I'll just call it the Manchester Marathon 2024 podcast, where we'll be talking about a particular mileage during the a marathon race. And obviously, this man was the first person to respond to my query coming first. So I thought it'd only be best that I bring on this man. He's got great endurance experience doing full Ironman, ultras, and all that type of stuff. So we're getting more talk about this, and also why Manchester Marathon. So for me, you might have seen, whilst I'm wearing my Boston Marathon top, I had the choice of Boston or Manchester. I've chosen Manchester, and there was a video that has been produced, the logistics of why I chose that. That's for another video, and you can watch that. But without further ado, let's bring on the man himself, Scott. G'day to you, Scott. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, it's brilliant. And I was going to say, give us a little brief talk about yourself, background, who you are, what you do. I think the bicycle in the background might be a bit of a clue for those who are watching, but I do love that. So thank you so much for the props, Scott. But yeah, tell us. I mean, as I say, thank you for coming on and giving up your time. You were the first one who was very keen to reply. So we're going to be later on talking about mile 1 in a marathon, because you are the first mile, Scott. So welcome being the first guest, and thank you for this. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, background, career-wise, and so on, family.
Yeah, no. So I'm Scott. I'm 44, live down south in the UK. Been running for 6 or 7 years now. It's quite late into it. I was the typical kid at school that hated cross country and did everything to avoid it. Played rugby and cricket through my teens and 20s, and then raced motorbikes and did all that kind of stuff. And then, married, kids, and started to put on a bit of weight, and thought, I need to get fit. So started doing, essentially, I suppose, couch to 5K in probably 2016, 2017. And since then it's kind of escalated just a little bit from just a little jog down the road to all sorts of stuff, as you've preempted, I suppose. And you can take the thrill seeker out of riding motorbikes and driving fast cars and things like that. But as fast as I can get these days is on that thing behind me, and it has to live indoors because it's a prized possession.
It is. It's amazing how many people I speak to, and I've visited a number of triathletes, and their prized possession is always indoors, gleaming, shiny. Yes, I presume you probably have a training bike or whatever, but correct me if I'm wrong, that's a Giant. Which model is that one of the Giant?
That's the Propel, which is the aero road bike. So it's as close as, I suppose, the quickest road bike you can get without going to a full-on sort of time trial bike.
Yeah, it is a nice one. I have a Giant myself, but not for the double entendres. Yes, I mean, so what essentially? So you've done a full Ironman.
Yeah,
you do full Ironman, which is an achievement in itself. I don't know how, having done just a 70.3, I don't know how people can keep going for twice as long. I thought just under 6 hours was enough for me. But you've also done the Race to the Stones 100K, and that was all in one. What got you started into running, Scott?
As I said earlier, I just needed to get fit, really. I used to play rugby to a kind of fairly average-ish kind of standard, and I found that rugby was starting to get a bit onerous on amount of time, away games. It was taking, it wasn't just the 80 minutes on a Saturday afternoon at 2:00. It was traveling to the south coast for at 9 in the morning and getting home at 9 o'clock at night. So it was writing off a complete Saturday, and then with the culture afterwards, it was writing off half of Sunday as well.
You got a few lemonades after the game.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've since, we'll probably touch on it later, but I've been teetotal now for nearly 5 years. But
okay,
that's another topic for a bit later on, maybe. But rugby was just getting a bit too much. So I thought, I'll just start running, because it's fundamentally it's supposedly free to start with, as we all well know.
I know.
Once Nike or whoever gets.
We'll talk about those shoes later, maybe.
Some new super shoes, but you know, you can do it anywhere. I travel, or pre-COVID, I traveled a lot for work as well. So, you know, I've run in pretty much most European capital cities. I think my last count was about 20 that I've done at least 10K running. I used to keep a digital map of it all, but since COVID, I don't travel as much for work these days. So it's just, you know, easy. You can do it at the drop of a hat. 2 o'clock in the morning, if you're overseas, you can just go for a run. You know, it's just an easy way to keep fit, and that's all it was to start with. But then, I suppose I've always had a competitive edge, so always had to thrive to do X, whether it's a PB, whether it's beat last year's time, whatever it may be. So when I first started running, I entered the local 10K, which is here in Newbury, and I think at the time I had maybe 3 or 4 months to go from 0 to a 10K, and I remember finishing my first 5K thinking, how the heck am I going to do that twice? Kind of thing. I think we all were there.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Running careers. And yeah, I think that one, 2017, I think I scraped my way round in an hour and 2 minutes. I think that was my first one. And in fact, they had the race again this year, and I think I did 41 minutes. So, you know, a bit of an improvement. But yeah.
That's a massive improvement, Scott. I mean, it's funny you say about traveling around the world, similar to yourself pre-COVID. I remember the days, obviously echoing the same way. I remember one time in LA getting up at 2 a.m. There was a flight at 7 a.m. So I'd get up at 2 a.m. to do my run in the dark, you know, obviously lit areas, so keeping it safe, just to get the training in before the taxi to get to the airport. So yeah, we get it done, as we say.
Yeah, exactly. And a good trick I just used to run for, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, just in a vague direction, and then just Google Maps back to whichever hotel I'm in. That was always quite an exciting way to visit and see things that you've never seen before, and maybe run through a few unscrupulous areas that maybe you shouldn't have run through. But you know,
I think, yeah, I mean, back in you say about the rugby day. By the way, was it rugby union or rugby league?
Proper rugby, which will
rugby union.
Rugby union.
Yes. Yeah. Having lived in Wales, I've been lectured of what proper rugby is. To be fair,
we used to train in the summer playing rugby league, and in rugby league's defence, you've got to be a heck of a lot fitter for rugby league than you do for rugby union.
Yeah. But I understand that. But obviously, on a theme with the rugby, quick question to you, Scott. Obviously, because right now, I don't know when we're going to be releasing this, but right now is Rugby World Cup in France.
Yes.
Who's your tip? Top two. Who's in the final? Go on.
We've just had Ireland beat New Zealand, which is a fairly big one. So I fancy Ireland or France for me. To be fair.
Even though Wales trounced Australia.
That's not hard. That's a wounded beast, isn't it? The Australians, they're hardly at their best.
Right. I think it was Ireland beat South Africa.
Sorry, South Africa. Yeah, you are right.
Current world champions. But yeah, I mean, France, home ground.
And France beat New Zealand. My mistake. Yeah.
You'd expect. I mean, that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? An all-European final.
I go for the French. In fact, yeah, I'll stake it to the post. I'll go for France.
Les Bleus, absolutely. That's a bit of a sideline there, but Manchester Marathon. I know you've got big goals, and obviously in terms of where we're at and so on and so forth. But my question to you is, why Manchester Marathon next year? Of all the marathons you could have chosen, and obviously being down the south coast, I would have thought, you know, I'll do a quick plug for Brighton Marathon. Why Manchester Marathon?
So I did Manchester in 2021, and that was, I suppose, to not getting into London again in the ballot. I think I've been in sort of 8-9 times now. So down here, to be fair, the kind of London Rejects Marathon is Southampton, which typically is on the same day, I think, as London, or the week after. I know Manchester's the week after, but I did Manchester in 2021 and loved it. It was fantastic. You know, the atmosphere, the course, and you know, where I am, Manchester's 200 miles. door to door, dead easy up the M6. You know, it's fairly simple. Stick it on cruise control and you're there 4 hours later, kind of thing. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, it's a no-brainer, really. Mum's from that part of the world, so you know, kind of an affinity with the Northwest as well. So yeah,
Manchester, here we come. So I did see in your notes you've got a big goal for Manchester, though. What are you aiming for? Bearing in mind we're about 6 months away, are we?
Yeah, what we now? Yeah,
away?
September now. So well, right now I'm in the middle of Achilles tendonitis rehab, so I'm not running anywhere at the minute. But we'll get that fixed by the time this comes out. The aim, I suppose, I've not managed to get into London for 9 years, and I'm absolutely passionate and determined to get into London. I don't know whether you can see behind me, just on, where's my shoulder? Wrong hand.
Yeah, I can see.
Some tiny little medals under there. So they are my granddad's London Marathon medals from 1983, 1984, and 1985.
Wow.
And I'm determined to get in and beat his times for London. So he ran about 3:12, I think was his fastest. So I move up an age group in February. I'm in the 45 to 49s or whatever the category is. So 45 in February. So I'm going to have a good go in 2024, and whether it's Manchester or whether it's later in the year, but I need to get sub 3:05 that's the good for age cutoff at the moment. Realistically, knowing the quality of runners out there at the moment, I'm going to have to get closer to 3 than 3:05 to get in as well. So next year, I'm probably going to aim to do maybe 5 marathons throughout the year with a view to getting as close to that as possible. So I'm already booked into one in March, which is the Great Welsh Marathon, which runs along the South Wales coast from Pembrey to Llanelli and back. And then 5 weeks later is Manchester in April. So, and I know the course in Manchester. I know what's where. And I think that's quite a big advantage when you're running something like a marathon, is that you know the milestones, you know the key kind of places, and you know how far you've got to go, you know what inclines are coming, you know where there's going to be support, you know, when you get into Altrincham or somewhere like that, you know it's going to be buzzing in there. So yeah, we're going to have a go anyway. So see if I can get good for age for 2025, see if I can get to London. So it's a very long-term plan, but that's, you know, the nature of good for age and all that. You've got to plan that far in advance. So
yeah. I think if you don't have a goal, as I say, goals in what is it? Sands plans in sands, goals in concrete, or something along those lines.
Right.
But I did check beforehand, Scott. The GFA, although the times you're going for, I would say yes, go for those times. But as you've said, that you have to get inside it. The GFA for 45 to 49, unless I was looking at the wrong website, 3 hours 10. So that would beat your granddad's time anyway. But as you said, with the cutoff times and so many people qualifying to get way inside that time. So yeah, you're going to need to run around 3 hours. So maybe we could be running together, because I'm looking at around the 3 hour mark. Having run a 3:02 this year, we could have a little jog along together. Maybe
you're up an age group, aren't you? So you've got slightly easy, but you're quicker than me anyway.
Well, it's all relative, but it's funny you say, Scott, about knowing the course and knowing the route. And with this podcast, it'll be 26 guests. I guess I make the point too, and we'll go through mile by mile. Your first mile 1. So talk us through, if we're given tips for people, and we're going to go through this. All the 26 guests will be going through what the strategy would be for each particular mile. So mile 1.
Mile 1's a good one. So mile 1, if I remember rightly, is a nice wide dual carriageway road heading back toward the city centre from Old Trafford. And mile 1 is where you do not want to get carried away.
But what happens to everyone?
Very easy to get dragged along, isn't it? I think, to be fair, when I did Manchester, I think I did the first 5K probably 2 minutes quicker than I planned to do it. Which somebody told me a really good thing, that if you've got a fairly good guideline of your marathon pace, you can probably steal a minute in the first half marathon. Anything more than that, you're going to pay back with interest in the second half. So if you go more than 2 or 3 minutes quicker than you planned in the first half, you're going to be paying that back with interest in the second half. It gets to mile 20, and that's when the death march comes in. I think if you've nicked a bit too much in the first half. So yeah, having a real, I want to say strict, but a good plan of your pacing is absolutely crucial. And that first kilometer, if I remember rightly as well, it's slightly downhill as well.
Yeah.
I think I was probably sub 4 minute kilometers in kilometer one.
Wow.
Because it's such a wide piece of road. Even though it's a big mass start, there's plenty of room, if I remember rightly.
Yes, that's right.
It's slightly downhill. It's a great surface. That day, it was crisp. The sun was out. It was absolutely perfect conditions in 2021 if you were there.
Yes, I was there. Yeah.
So it's extremely easy to get carried away and dragged along too quick. So yeah, my advice for it is stick to your guns. Look at your Garmin or your whatever watch you've got, and stick to it.
Don't go off too fast.
Absolutely.
I did see what you've just mentioned echoes with something that I'd read, and the V.2 planning. I've forgotten the name of the coach. I think he's named after a whiskey, and he's saying that for every minute, he was talking at the half marathon stage. So every minute you are ahead of your current fitness at half marathon stage, you will lose 2 minutes on each of those minutes in the second half, which is quite scary, really. And I've produced videos, and one's coming out where it's about negative splitting, ideally. If we know what our splits, do you tend to go more even splits?
No,
or do you go
no. I wish I could. I wish I could, but I can't. I'm the polar opposite, and I'm go out too hard and try and hang on.
Oh, and hang on. Oh, but will you be changing your because I was going to ask, are you following any kind of plan? Do you have a plan? Do you have a coach?
No, I don't have a coach. I'm a bit of a nerd, and I like to build an Excel spreadsheet. And
same here.
I like to take inspiration from all over the place. So I run with a great bunch of guys every Friday morning, and there's some serious runners in that little group we run with, from Team GB ultra marathon runners to very fast boys running 2 hour 40 kind of marathons. So
yeah,
I learn a lot from those guys, and I suppose take the best bits from online plans that you see knocking around, and modify my own to fit, really. General concept for me building up to this, I'll probably run 5 days a week. 2 or 3 of them will be very easy. One of them will be a long run. One of them will be speed work or hills. Fundamentally, that will be the crux of it. And I'll probably max out, let's have a think, jumping the gun a bit, but probably only 60 or 70 miles a week maximum. I can't see me going over that. Long runs, I'll probably get up to 20, 22 miles as a maximum. And again, only for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I won't be at that kind of level every time. But yeah, I like ticking things off a spreadsheet, print it out, put it on the wall, get my highlighter pens out.
You and me both, Scott. We do love our spreadsheets, and it gives you like a satisfaction when you put that tick.
Yeah, absolutely. Tick through it, and you've done a good job.
Done it.
I'm even doing that. I mentioned with my Achilles at the moment. I've going through rehab for it at the moment, and I'm ticking off my exercises that my physio's given me, and all that kind of stuff. Wow, so, but that's just overuse, bad form, and too many miles this year.
Yeah. I mean, you and me both probably. I mean, I've tendonitis. Both my Achilles have been tendinopathy, which is a bit more extreme, whatever. But yeah, we have to follow the guidance on there. But going back to your long runs, Scott, do you do your long runs with any specific workouts inside, or is it just a nice, easy, steady?
No, I tend to stick at a fairly consistent pace. I run a lot to heart rate, so I'll be I'll keep mine under 140 BPM.
So is that zone 2 for you? Or zone
That's
1,
well in
zone
time.
2?
Zone 2 for me. And it'll be time based really, as opposed to distance realistically. So I'll probably go maybe up to 3 hours. And 140 BPM pace for me is probably I'm kilometers, so what, 5-minute 30, 5-minute 40 kilometer pace. Fairly easy, have a chat, watch the world go by kind of pace. Which is lovely on an early Sunday morning.
Can't beat it, can you?
Can't beat it, no.
So that pace is the one that's perfect for building up the mitochondria.
Yes,
I can't remember.
like
which helps with our VO2. So it sounds like it's all in hand there, Scott. But with the training, with Manchester, having done it before, I'd love to know from you, are there any particular things you're looking forward to in Manchester? Is there any, the build up to it, the routes, is it people?
I think even the Saturday night trying to find somewhere to eat, although I've got better in terms of planning and carb loading and all that kind of stuff now, so maybe it won't quite be as last minute trying to find. My go-to pre-marathon dinner used to be Mexican burritos and things like that, lots of rice, wraps, that kind of thing.
Not too spicy,
easy on the jalapenos, but so I might be a bit better planned these days. But the buzz of getting into town on the Saturday, finding your Travelodge or Premier Inn or wherever's the cheapest place to stay near kind of Salford Quays or somewhere like that. I think this year there might be a few of us coming up to do it. So the buzz around, getting up, walking around to Old Trafford as a kind of easy warm up. Dropping the bags off at the cricket ground and starting to get the buzz in, waiting for the pen to open up. But just the atmosphere, praying that the Manchester weather gods are kind to us. I know they can be interesting ones. April, though, realistically should be fairly temperate and pretty good conditions. Bit of light rain, I don't really care as long as it's not too hot. And then get going. Get around Deansgate where it'd be buzzing. You've got this, the Sunday shoppers and everybody supporting who couldn't be bothered to get up early and walk to the start to watch people off. So that'll be packed and buzzing. And then you get back around the start area again before you go off around the Old Trafford football. That's really busy. And then I remember, I think probably around the half marathons point, I can't remember the name of the little place, but everyone's out on their driveways, they're all having parties. It's just buzzing the whole route. It was just supported all the way. There weren't any quiet areas, and where there was a quiet area, in an industrially sort of part of town, there's some guy that's rocked up in his Jeep with massive speakers and blasting the out. It's the whole way round. All 26 miles was buzzing, but Altrincham, the kind of turnaround point at the Mount Southerly point, again, you run around the kind of city centre or town centre bit of that. That was great, and then back out, and you're starting to see people going the other way, and that's where you try and spot your mates.
And wave at them. Hello.
Either they're going back out and you're coming in and they're ahead of you, or whatever it might be. You try and see people. And then get back toward the finish and get it done. But it was just a fantastically supported race. I mean, prior to that, my biggest sort of city marathon was Amsterdam, and I don't know whether you've done it, but it's not quite as glamorous as it sounds. I think long sections of Amsterdam are up and down a river, and then you're around a bit of an industrial estate, and then you're very much in the south of Amsterdam. You're not bang in the middle of it, so it's not quite as well supported as or as glamorous as you might think it may be. So Manchester's a proper contrast. It's buzzing all the way around. If the weather's right, everybody's out and it's a party all the way around.
It's interesting. I've not done Amsterdam myself, maybe one day, but a lot of people, obviously, Amsterdam is famous for all sorts of things, as I'm sure Manchester is famous for lots of things as well. But you are right, there seems to be a bit of a glamour to certain races overseas. I've done quite a few myself, not Amsterdam, but I had heard whilst Amsterdam is claimed to be flat, there's lots of little bridges you have to go over
I class Amsterdam as relentless. Because where you go up a little hill, you come down a little hill.
Yeah,
There's not many bridges, if I remember rightly. One of the biggest things for me for Amsterdam was basically it's 10k out and back down the River Amstel, and the
right.
road or the pathway that you walk down is kind of concave. So unless you
Yeah,
can get
yeah,
right in the middle of that road, 10k later, your right leg's been landing half a
yes,
centimeter below
yeah,
your
yeah,
left
yeah,
leg, and that doesn't sound like a lot until you do it for nearly an
yeah.
hour, and then your hips start to hurt. There's no let up in Amsterdam. There's no
Wow.
easy bit. Um, if you want to do a Holland one, I've heard Rotterdam is much better than Amsterdam.
Yeah,
I heard the
yeah,
people of Rotterdam, and it's buzzing. The atmosphere is really, really good, and it's
yeah,
equally
yeah.
as flat as you'd imagine
Mm,
in
mm.
Holland. But I mean, Manchester's pretty flat. I don't think is there a flatter marathon in the UK than Manchester?
I don't think it is claimed to be the flattest. Obviously, it's not
It's
totally
not
flat.
far though, is it?
No, no, no. I mean, again, I'm in Berlin, having just finished yesterday,
Mm.
um, which is the flattest one. It's the flattest marathon major. I don't think it's the flattest marathon, but Manchester is the flattest in the UK. But I have heard people complaining about the hills. So
There's just the dual carriageway bit into Altrincham, isn't it? And
yeah,
that's
yeah. There's a
a
dual
bit of a
carriageway up
slog
to
there.
Altrincham, and then there's that little lump going up into Altrincham town itself, or the
Yes,
town centre.
that's
But
nothing.
apart from that, yeah, yeah. It's I think going back to your mile one strategy,
Mm,
if because by then you're getting to mile 13, mile 14, 15, and so on, somewhere around there, is if
mm,
you've overcooked your
that's
beans,
true.
then you will feel the hill, and it will start taking it out of you. But I guess it comes back down to strategy. So a lot for you to look forward to there, Scott, at Manchester, and I
Yeah.
can see the appeal there. But the question for you would be: is with all this going on and the Achilles as well, is and following that, is have you got a strategy to get yourself right now
Mm,
to ensure before you start any marathon training,
yeah.
because obviously if you've got a marathon coming up in March, then the training for that will be starting pretty soon. Are you going to look to ensure that the Achilles is cleared, or is that part of the
Yeah,
progression
no,
for it?
absolutely. I've had Achilles problems in the past, and I've never properly dealt with them. I
Mm,
think so. This time is I'm doing it properly. So I've had a couple of physio sessions already. My physio is really good and quite strict. So I'm on a fairly strict strength. It's active recovery and strengthening.
mhm.
So a lot of it, as you know, with the Achilles stems from the calf muscle. So a lot of calf strengthening stuff. And this Saturday just gone, I had my first run walk for 3 weeks. So at the minute, I'm allowed to walk 4.5 minutes in every 5 and run 30 seconds for every 5 minutes for
That's
6
very
reps.
strict there, Scott.
So
Very strict rules.
I ran for 3 minutes at Parkrun on Saturday just gone. So 3 of those a week. Every week I can bring in an extra minute, an extra 30 seconds, sorry, of running. So another 6 weeks or so of this, which will get
Wow.
me to, I suppose, the end of October, early November, and hopefully by that point I can start to build the mileage up again. And I'm probably about 20 weeks plus outside of the Great Welsh, which is on St Patrick's Day, 17th of March. So it should time quite nicely to get there. So that'll be the tester. We'll see where I am there, and then that's going to give me another 5 weeks to tune up to Manchester. So we'll see how I go. But I'm yeah, to get down to my target around the 305 kind of thing. It might be a little bit later in the year, but I'll certainly give it a good go with Manchester and see
Yeah,
where
yeah,
we're at, and then see what else is about. Milton Keynes is around. There's quite a few later in the year as well.
yeah,
September.
yeah,
You're looking at Chester, Abingdon near is very close to me, and that's renowned to be very unglamorous but flat and fast.
yes.
In fact, it's
Abingdon.
in a couple of weeks from
Yeah,
now. In October.
Abingdon. Back in the day, before before I was running and all that, it was seen, and obviously before the big commercial ones of Manchester and Brighton arrived, Abingdon
Mm.
was the key marathon that
That
a
was the
lot of
quick one, wasn't it?
GFA. Yeah, that was the GFA one. As you say, it's not glamorous. There's
No.
not thousands and thousands of support, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of supporters on the course. But it is, I believe, that one is the flattest, I think.
Right. And that's fairly, I mean, that's only 10 miles up the road from where I live.
Yeah. So
you know,
who knows, and that might be the one to target. But,
we'll see.
But as we all know, I don't know how much you are on the psychology of sport, is sometimes, and obviously being a rugby man as well, sports teams, and I follow ice hockey, we often talk about the extra man on the field, in the stadium, often in football as well, or for my American friends, soccer is the 12th man, the stadium. So there's 11 players on the pitch. Do you think having a big crowd there supporting you has an influence on your time?
I think so. I definitely, it gives you encouragement. I think for any first timer doing a marathon, the best piece of advice is get your name written on your front as big as possible, because I think hearing people shouting your name, it does psychologically give you this little kick and this little boost. Absolutely, I think so. Yeah, the more people that are out there shouting the name, the more you might do it. And when you're in that dark place at mile 22 and it hurts like hell, if someone says, "Come on, Scott, you can do it," you never know. You might smile and start running again, maybe, or pick up the pace.
I'm 100% with you there on Scott. I mean, I've seen there's been too many instances in all types of sports where you can't explain how certain things happen, and I think our minds and psychology, and obviously having ran, I've got to ask you, the 100K race to the Stones. I've walked around Avebury Stone Circle. I used to live not too far from Salisbury, so I used to go to Stonehenge, Avebury. 100K.
Yeah,
come on.
it's a bit of a way, isn't it? It was good. I loved it.
In one day, yeah. So it's non-stop for you, yeah. Obviously, you have aid stations as you go along, but
so I think
you didn't do the overnight camping and then do the.
No. I think that sounds worse to me. 50K, sleep in a tent, and do 50K again the next day sounds worse than 100 straight through for me. So no, 100 straight through. We started at 6 in the morning. I'm trying to think how many aid stations there were. Probably 6 aid stations, maybe 7. And that day it was really, really humid. The first 3 hours, 6 in the morning, it was that really horrible humid time. When was it? Start of July, I think, this year.
Yeah.
Trail running along the Thames for a lot of the start of it. So you're down at kind of sea level. And it was really hot and humid. So until we got up on the chalk on the Ridgeway. But no, loved it. It's a different pace, very different to marathon running. My build up to that was literally just miles at slow, easy pace, which is probably where I've done the Achilles injury from, because I've started to pick up the pace after I finished that, and gone straight into speed work proper and done myself in. But no, race, I can't remember what I did, about 11 hours 13 or something like that. So
wow.
not bad. Top 50, I think, just about. I ran it with a friend of mine who, to be fair, leading up to it, I was trying to convince him that he didn't need to run with me, that he was way quicker and should go off on his own. But he was like, no, we'll just do it for fun. We'll do it together. And shout out to Rich for looking after me. But we paced each other really well. Where I was struggling, he was up and dragged me along, and vice versa. But no, fantastic event. I reckon at the time somebody said to me, "Would you do it again?" And I was immediately like, "No. I'd have another go." And I reckon I could do it quicker this time as well. Knowing what I know now and where, and what you've got coming, because there were sections of that where it was uphill for 4 kilometers at least, kind of thing. Not the little ridge went into Altrincham. But no, we got away. We dodged it with the weather, I suppose. But it was fairly good conditions. Later on in the day, we got lucky because it was a horrendous rain, but we'd already finished by that point, luckily. So, but no, great atmosphere along the way. Not supported quite like Manchester with tens of thousands of people lining the Ridgeway, but it was good to get some support along the way at pub stops and things like that. The aid stations, and that was the aid stations there. Something else. It's like a picnic and a cafe. I was going in and ordering coffees and all sorts of things. It was great.
That sounds. I mean, I've had people who've done a lot of ultras, and they sort of the way they explain an ultra is basically like a marathon with lots of picnics in between.
It's a moving picnic.
Yeah, moving
You
picnic.
say that though, but I did it entirely on tailwind, and I think I had a penguin chocolate bar and 2 cups of coffee, and that was it. I did it
Wow.
all on tailwind and a few gels and stuff. And that's similar to how I fueled Ironman, was all on
Yeah,
liquid stuff. So
yeah. I think
um,
it's often the best way. So you've clearly got the endurance in you,
mm,
Scott. You know, you could keep going for hours and hours. Obviously, a marathon then is regarded as a bit of a sprint, you know,
yeah,
for just 3 hours compared to
yeah,
12
marathon
hours,
speed work.
50. Yeah. So what's your current marathon PB? When was it?
Well, I've not run a fast one since Manchester 2021, so that was 3:30 or 3:31 or something like
Okay, okay.
that. But and then prior to getting injured, I reckon I was probably at about, from training runs, about 3:15, 3:20 pace.
Yeah,
I reckon I could have done quite comfortably,
yeah,
based on
yeah.
half marathon efforts and things like that. So whilst 3:05, going from a 3:30 to 3:05 seems like a big jump, it's been through 2.5, 3 years since I've had a proper go at a
Yeah,
fast one.
yeah.
And I think, fairly realistically, I've done some foundation work in the background. The last
Mm.
6 months I've hit the gym quite heavily. Whilst my Achilles is out for running, the bike's out, or I'm on Zwift quite
Mm.
frequently as well, keeping up with everything. So yeah, I'm not just sat here eating biscuits, unfortunately.
And doing podcasts. You've
Yes.
certainly got the right. I think it's 100% doable. Um, I wouldn't say 110%. There's no such thing. I mean, it's definitely
No.
100% doable. And as you've quite rightly said, is because of the amount of time that's passed in the 2 years, 2.5 years. That's a
Mm.
massive time. And if you were doing a marathon like a lot of people do, maybe two, a spring one and an autumn one, you would have seen incremental improvements all the way
Yeah.
through, and you'd probably be around 3:05 now. So 3 hours around that time is definitely doable for you, Scott,
Yeah.
with the right strategy, as we always
Exactly,
say.
and we'll see. It might not be Manchester. It might be later in the year. It might be a September one or
Yeah,
something like that. But I
yeah, it
think
could
this
be.
year I'm giving myself 2024 is the year of the marathon. So I seem to run in years of stuff. This year was ultra marathon. Last year was Ironman. 2025 is going to be hopefully London Marathon and maybe another Ironman. But I might have a go at a quick Ironman as opposed to.
I know, Scott. It sounds amazing. So, in terms of, you've preempted the what next for you. There's obviously a lot on the table there for you, Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, there's what would you say is the one golden nugget of information that you've heard, sent, received, that you would say for a marathon training or running or racing a marathon is the key nugget? Or do you have
My
three nuggets? I
My
don't know.
kind of favorite mantra, I suppose, is train slow to race fast. I'm a
Right.
big believer in the kind of 80-20 rule, or
Yeah.
zone
Yeah.
2, or
Yeah.
whatever theory or logic or whomever's name you want to put behind it. But train at a pace where you can have a chat and enjoy things for 80% of the time. Make your easy stuff easy. This is another, I can't remember who says this one, but make your
Yeah.
easy runs easy and your hard stuff hard. So if you're
Yeah.
going to go hard, you're going all out and you go for it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
easy is easy. There's no grey area in between where you've gone a bit harder than you should have, or not pushed yourself as hard as you could have on a hard stuff. So that, yeah, my big one is, yeah, easy is easy, hard is hard. But yeah, train
Absolutely.
slow to race fast. I like that one.
Exactly. And when you were touching on that, you train on time and heart rate,
Mm.
and those are great indications that you're not stressing about your pace when you're out there.
Yeah, and
You're not
that's the
looking at your
thing.
watch every 5 minutes to see what the pace is, and that you're
No,
on a
and
certain
and
pace.
I think as you get older or wiser, or start to care a little bit less about what Strava looks like and how your kudos is going to be, and you know, I, I've done 10 miles at 6 minute whatever pace kilometers. I really don't care these days. I think it's quite easy to fall in that trap though of running too hard for the wrong reasons, whether
Mm,
that's
mm.
kudos or Instagram or whatever it is these days. But you know, I don't care really these days. If my slow stuff is slow, and it can be quite funny seeing people. You know, I'd been training slow, and I smashed out a really quick 10K last year, and everyone was like, "Where on earth did that come from?" I'm like, "It's come from months and months of training really slow."
Yeah, yeah. There's no magic formula, is there, Scott? No shortcuts.
No. Absolutely no shortcuts at all. No, it stems from a lot of hard work. We said at the, I think, intro at the top. You know, my very first 10K back in 2017 was an hour and 2 minutes or something like that, and the same race this year was 41 minutes, I think, and I hadn't trained for 10Ks either. That was mid ultra marathon training as well. So that was probably the first time I'd run quick for some time.
Have you done a sub 40 yet? 10K?
Yeah. So I've done a sub 40. That was in November, just gone, around Castle Combe race car circuit.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And in fact, I've driven and raced motorbikes around there as well. So I've got all sorts of lap records. It's quite a good one. So I think it was, if I remember, it was 3 laps, I think, of the racetrack. They call it the Chili 10K or something like that. It's a good one though. I'd recommend it. And they run a duathlon afterwards as well, so you can run, bike, run. I think was the format they do it there. But yeah, I've gone sub 40, sub 25s, sub 90 half. So the next one is a decent marathon time.
Excellent. I'm sure you will achieve that, Scott. And all I can say, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you and being mile 1 here at Manchester Marathon. And I do love my takeaway from what you've said, Scott, and obviously everyone watching, leave some comments below what your takeaways are. But I would say it's run slow to get fast.
Yep, sounds good. And I think that's probably a good thing for mile 1 as well, not just in the training up to it, but for mile 1 as well.
Take it nice and easy. So thank you so much for your time, Scott. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have you back on and we'll have you chatting, and I look forward to sharing a cup of tea or coffee in Manchester ready.
Definitely.
2024.
I'm a cyclist. We love cakes.
Yes, I was going to say cake is all about, and maybe a post-marathon pizza. Who knows, down at Francomanca in Piccadilly. Anyway, thank you so much, Scott. Take care.
Thanks, Donato.
Love you lots, mate. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.